Let me tell you a story. This is Bob. Bob owns the Timberfield Titans football team. This is Dave, the referee. Bob would like to give him a giant bag of cash. Do you think the rest of the league would have a problem with that? Yes, I imagine they would. Let's try this again. This is Bob, he owns the Titans. This is Dave, he's a good referee. Bob does not like that Dave is a good referee. He goes to the commission office. The commission is run by the league. This is Deborah, she's the commissioner. Bob gives Deborah a giant pile of cash, and suddenly, Dave is no longer the referee. Instead, it is Steve, Bob's friend, and Steve is not such a perfect angel. So now everyone's happy, right? No? Okay, well, let's try this again. Maybe instead of the cash, Bob instead decides that he's going to build a new league headquarters. This is called an in-kind contribution. It's the same as giving cash. If you've got a donation called a quid, and you've got communication for what you want called quo, it looks like you're getting this for that, quid pro quo, and that is the definition of bribery. Okay, so let's get rid of the quid. Bob is just talking to Carol about his Dave problem, and happens to let her know about Deborah, who wants to build a new headquarters if only she had the money. Bob is going to give the money to Deborah instead. That has nothing to do with Steve getting Dave's job, right? Wrong. It really doesn't matter if Bob is paying the builders or paying someone who's paying the builders. I'm pretty sure the other team owners are going to have a pretty big problem with this either way. Let me tell you a news story. Titans are out, now Bob owns a widget factory. Dave inspects for worker and customer safety. The bag of cash doesn't just anger the league now it's against the law. So, let's try again. This is Bob, he makes widgets. This is Dave, he's a good inspector. Carol is not the commissioner anymore, she was elected to the Senate. So Bob gives Carol a big bag of cash and tells her about his Dave problem. Now the inspector is Steve, and Steve is not as fair as Dave. But the Supreme Court allows limits to donations to politicians. So what if instead, Bob pays for a campaign ad? That's the same thing. Congress limits in-kind contributions too. If you want to exceed that limit, it has to be independent, and Congress limits your communication with the politician instead. Because donation plus corruption, quid pro quo, equals bribery. One last try. Let's get rid of the quid, the donation. Now Bob is just talking to Carol about his Dave problem, and happens to let her know about Deborah, who wants to run totally independent campaign ads if only she had the money. Bob is going to give the money to Carol instead. That has nothing to do with Steve getting Dave's job, right? Yes, at least according to SpeechNow v. FEC. In that case, the court said that as long as the PAC is independent, Congress can't regulate where they get their money. And that case was decided by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is not the United States Supreme Court. In fact, it's a lower court. There are many problems with Supreme Court cases weakening corruption laws. We'll need to amend the Constitution to fix it. Groups like Wolfpack and American Promise are working on that, but they never went as far as the D.C. Circuit Court. The Supreme Court says you can have unlimited communications, but Congress can limit what you can spend. Or you can have unlimited spending, but then Congress can limit your communication to prevent coordination. Otherwise, there's a risk of quid pro quo corruption. If another case goes all the way to the Supreme Court, they can overturn the D.C. Circuit decision. That's what Equal Citizen is working on right now. Spread the word.